Nick, I see you're in the updated version of the Enterprise today, as opposed to Anna's old-fashioned version.
Where's yes, you are the Enterprise. Is that Enterprise D? Or no?
Gotta unmute yourself if you're gonna talk.
Yes, the best Enterprise.
Debatable. Well, yes, Lexi, and proud of it. Okay. So, I think discussion this time, we would kind of like to focus on reopening plans, where you are with them. I do have conversation starters again, which I can pull up here, but does anyone have any things before that? Okay. All right, I'll do what I did last time and pull that up on the screen, and then when someone starts to talk, I'll go back to video. So,
And if you've got anything to say, just feel free to unmute yourself if nobody else is talking and chime right in. Please tell us who you are and what library you're with, and then go ahead and say whatever you want. If you don't have the ability to talk to us or don't want to talk to us, go ahead and throw something in the chat. We are monitoring that as well.
oh, come on. That's not what I want. Close. Oh, well.
Hit the little presentation dealy up there on the top.
Yeah. Why can't there? That thing?
Yes.
Haha. There we go. Okay.
No,
you seeing my? Well, now it's on the other screen. Oh my goodness. Okay. You'd think I'd know Zoom better by now. I'm sorry.
Try the one on the bottom right.
That one?
No, not that one.
No.
Over. Next, it looks next to the book. That one, yeah.
Yeah.
Opened it on your other screen.
Yeah,
okay.
it did. One sec.
Yeah, there's a thing up at the top you can click
there.
and tell it to do single screen mode. There you go.
Okay, cool.
I'm learning so much about PowerPoint. Thank you so much.
Okay, so are we seeing the reopening plan screen on the screen
Yes.
here now? Okay, good. Then I'm not going to mess with it anymore. So take it away, someone. Does anyone have any reopening plans in the works, or has anyone completed the reopening plan, or where are libraries with that?
This is Lexi at Washington. I don't have a plan yet. I'm working on it. I tentatively envision opening just to a limited number of staff at first to receive materials and start getting our new items in and cataloging, because we haven't been doing any of that. Moving on to opening our drive-up window, and then maybe from there it's a little dicier. I'm not really sure, but probably have let people come in for services like fax, copier, computer, that kind of stuff, but not linger, and then gradually open it up to more people and more services as we go, just kind of depending. I did have my board meeting last night, and they authorized me to create and execute the plan. I mean, in conjunction, with recommendations from Rails and health authorities and my management team and that kind of stuff. But at least we're not going to have to, have a meeting every single time that we need to change or expand services. So that is positive.
Good.
I'm drinking a beer. Sorry.
All right. Well, I'll put the slides back, maybe.
So this is Mary in Wyoming, and we're pretty small. I'm hoping that when we open, we're just open. Because we're small, we don't have crowds in the library, even on a normal day. So returns could be heavy, and I've kind of thought through a system for that. We're going to use some bins and quarantine those items. I've already gone in, obviously, and had to empty the drop box a few times. So yeah. Hopefully we will. I've already removed some furniture, to encourage social distancing. Probably Barbara and Kiwani has suggested they were going to post a sign about not lingering in the library, probably have some computer time limits, and post signage about that so that we have time as a staff to wipe things down between users. Yeah, I've had to shut down one of my computer stations because I don't have a good place to relocate it, and they're kind of close together. And I just feel like that one in the middle has to either move or not be used. So, yeah, I've got a plan. It's on paper. I think that, you know, whether we open in 2 weeks, 3 weeks, or a month, you've got to have a plan.
Right.
And you might as well start thinking about it before, you know, I don't think he's going to get up and say, hey, everybody's back to work tomorrow. But, you know, if he does, I think people in my community are pretty ready to visit their library.
Yeah. Okay.
This is Kathy Rogie from Prairie Skies, and I'm in the process of drafting our plan.
Mhm.
What I'm thinking right now is that when we open, we'll open both locations. I will be honest, the staff has been going in doing things so we don't look for a bunch of returns and things right away. We've been sanitizing and cleaning. We are going to put all our soft furniture away. We're going to rearrange the furnishing so people are not close together. Both our buildings are small, so that's kind of a question. I will be limiting the amount of people in the building at one time, plus probably how long they'll stay there. Then as we go on, our counties, both Sangamon and Cass, has just started seeing confirmed cases.
Mm.
So that may, when we open, may depend upon all that. So we'll see, but that is what we're thinking about right now. And we have canceled all our summer reading programs and looking at what else we can do. So that's where we are right now. Excuse me.
We did have a question in the chat. Does anyone plan to have mandatory masks for staff or for patrons?
This is Kath again. We are for staff,
Okay.
but I don't know if we can for patrons. That's something, you know, we may have to address as we open and see how it goes.
So with regard to masks, do you have a source for those? Are you able to order those online? Or are you doing the homemade masks?
Actually, I've been making masks for all my staff.
Okay, so I'm not going to do that. So anybody know where we can order those?
In all seriousness, Miss Mary, you could, I mean, I could hook you up with people that I know who are making homemade masks, and, you know, they're selling them at a very reasonable price, but.
Okay, so with the homemade masks, do they launder? I mean, is that an acceptable?
Yeah, for the most part, homemade masks can launder. I mean.
So you'd want a few for each staff member,
Yeah.
so you wear the same skanky mask every day.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of Facebook groups that you can contact about getting masks. I can send some information to you also.
Yeah,
There's probably some in our community.
Probably so.
Unaware.
If there's like sewing groups or quilting groups, a lot of them are doing it.
Yeah, I'm a little bit afraid to ask, but I will.
This is Laura from Dunlap. I was just gonna chime in after Kathy spoke regarding masks for staff, and I'm tentatively, like other people have said, I'm drafting reopening procedures right now. Nothing's been set in stone, but I am tentatively planning on having my staff that are out working with the patrons mandatory wear a mask. I have some staff, some of you have been to the Dunlap Library, you remember they actually work in a room that is separate, and they actually rarely come out to the regular area, the general area. So they will still be issued masks, but the people who are directly working with patrons, they will have to wear a mask, and they will be homemade. I actually have a staff member who volunteered she didn't volunteer her time. I'm agreeing to pay her her regular hourly wage, but she volunteered all of the fabric. So that's generous.
We have another question in the chat about items that are returned. How long do you quarantine them and or how do you sanitize them?
We actually, this is Prairie Skies again. We're doing Clorox wipes, but now we're spraying them and wiping them down with a paper towel. We quarantine them for 2 days before we put them away.
Kathy, spraying them with what?
Lysol, and the Lysol spray.
So I attended this is Mary in Wyoming again. I attended the webinar with, oh gosh, who did it? I don't know. It was Friday. And they said that liquid wipes in particular, she was a conservationist actually, but apparently kind of a scientist because she acted like she knew what she was talking about. And she said that liquids actually can damage your books. And remember that when you're wiping, you're not getting the 300 or 400 pages in between the cover. But the CDC is not overly concerned about transmission of the virus on print materials. So they actually suggested that quarantine is enough. However, they were talking about a 72-hour quarantine as being sort of the maximum time required. I don't know. The research says that the virus can live on paper and cardboard for 24 hours, plastic for 3 days. So 72 would be the maximum quarantine. Beyond the quarantine, I'm not going to use any chemicals on the books.
Yeah, that was the basic gist of not only that particular decontamination process, but I've read a couple of other studies and seen a couple other slideshows from various groups, and they all seem to be kind of revolving around just put everything away for 72 hours, put a note on it. This is today. You can pick it up, Saturday or whatever 72 hours from today is, and not so much worry about wiping things off. Now they may change their minds and come back, but I think the reason why they're saying that 72 hours is fine without having to wipe all the plastic surfaces is that the amount of virus that you get from a book or a video off the cover would be so minute that even if you were infected, 99.9% of people, that level of dosage isn't going to really do anything to them. So they've all kind of been coalesced now around 72 hours, just put it aside. And after that 72 hours, then it's considered clean, quote unquote.
And if anyone hasn't been following in the chat, we've had some helpful links have been added there, one to the COVID-19 and collection cares and one to a mask making tutorial. So just so that you are aware.
Jamie, if you're listening, if you can grab that mask making tutorial link and throw it on our COVID-19 page, that would be great.
Yep, I can do that.
Thank you. Let's see, I'll pop the little thing back up here. Sure. Okay. There's the little conversation starters things. Is anyone, set up in a way that they think they'll be able to do any kind of curbside or like any, I guess, plans for doing types of services that don't involve, letting patrons back in the building, I guess. Any of those sorts of plans and concerns you've had?
Kathy again, and we are going to continue curbside for patrons that want it. If they want to come in the building, if they have concerns, then we will just meet them on the curb or at the door and give them any items they want. So we're going to be very hands-on service with patrons, which is what we've been doing while we've been closed, actually. So.
Do you have them call ahead with their list of items that they want so that you know what they want, or are you having them pull up and then talking to them and then grabbing the books and bringing them back out?
We ask them to email or call us and leave a message. We want an idea. We want to limit the contact. So we want a list. If they give us a list, and a lot of my staff are very familiar with some of our patrons and what they read, they can pick items for them. And so they'll have them ready, check them out, and just hand them to them in the car. what they do, or through the door.
Kathy, are you still able to keep 6 feet of distance? What you're just describing sounds like your staff are going to be standing right next to the patrons.
But they'll all have masks, so they won't affect them. And the staff have gotten very good about what I read is hand washing still seems to be the important thing.
Well, you're
Gloves really don't do that much. And in fact, sometimes it gives you a false sense of security. The mask and hand washing, from what I see, is the important things. And this is what my staff has been very good about. If they can stay 6 feet away, they do. But, you know, that is what they've been doing.
I encourage you to consider like having your staff place the items that your patrons want, and it's agreed upon. Okay, we're going to check out these, 10 books and 2 DVDs or whatever the thing is. I encourage your staff to bundle them in a bag or other bundle and then place them in the trunk of the car, because then you're really not coming into contact with the patron. Because remember, the mask that you're talking about, the mask keeps any of your staff's germs from getting to the other people. These homemade masks, they don't really keep other people's germs from getting to you.
And Laura, I'm aware of that. I understand that. And I know this. And like I said, my staff does take the precautions. It just depends upon the situation. It's not always very feasible, depending on who the patron is and how they've got it set up.
And Laura, putting in the trunk is great, but to put in, I drive a hatchback. I'm going to have to get out, open it, step back, you put the stuff in, then I have to close it again because I don't have a hatch. I don't have an inside button.
There are quite a few libraries talking about doing what I guess the industry term has settled on, drop and wave, where patrons are either putting something, on the bench in front of the library and driving away, and then staff come out and get it, or staff deliver to the bench and then whoever's in the car out front gets out and goes and picks it up, which would eliminate, if you know what the patron wants, that would eliminate the person-to-person contact.
I've also heard leaving it on the roof of the car and then, walking away. All of these things, I'm always just kind of like, on a rainy day, always, pictures of these spring storms we were starting to have. I'm just like, oh my goodness. But,
that's happened to patrons even before now, where they put them on the roof of the car and drive away. Forget about them.
Oh, I've done that. I had to buy a Martha Stewart slow cooker book from the library because I did that. So, but there's lots of different. What was the other one? There was the drop and wave, and then there was also some library had another click and collect was the other thing, but they were doing online hold things, whatever library that was. I think that was someone in Australia. So
this is Beth with Pekin. Those of you that are planning on doing this sort of service, regardless of how you're handing off, do you have a procedure yet for how you know when they're there? Are they calling when they get there? Do they have a time set up ahead?
I've got a procedure, a draft of a procedure. I apologize if I'm sorry, this is Laura from Dunlap. I'm sorry if I'm if I'm repeating myself, because I've been on a couple different library directors calls. I'm happy to bring up or even share the document, but let me see if I can find that, because I could either email or maybe I could share my screen.
Well, this is a good time for me to point out, if you do have a document in the works, we will make space on our little COVID-19 page, if you have sample plans that you're willing to share. And there is also a survey that I'll be posting the link for in the chat at some point during this meeting, about your reopening plans, and you'll also get the link to that in the newsletter. So if you do have a plan that you're willing to share, you can send it to the help desk or email me. And we would love to post that so that other libraries can kind of, not reinvent the wheel basically, or steal some ideas. So if you're willing to share those, it would be appreciated. And Rails is also hosting some of those sample plans on their COVID-19 page as well. So
okay, this is Elizabeth and Henry, and about I would love it if people called from their car and said they were there, but the reality is that we have a big picture window and a big glass door, and we can really see all of the parking. So being a small library works in our favor there. It doesn't work in our favor so much in the 6 feet of distance, but it does work in our favor in I can see out the front door and I know when somebody pulled up. Heck, we know when somebody pulled up, and then we start wondering, are they coming in? Free, but there was a car that pulled up. Are they coming in? Nobody's come in. What's going on? What are they doing in there? So, and perhaps sometimes we're bored, so.
This is Kathy, and right now, they have to tell us a time when they're going to be there, because we do have windows, but we can't always see if somebody's there or not. So that way we know when we should start looking for them. So they have to give us a time.
that makes sense. Yeah, I know a lot of libraries are doing appointment based for this. So
I will add that, while we do see them when they pull up, a rough time is definitely appreciated so that we're not just staring out the windows.
Right.
Right, because then you still have to check out the items to them at some point in time. You can't wait for them to pull up necessarily. Or have you thought about that? How are you going to check them out beforehand if they come up with a time that they're coming, or are you going to wait till, or are you going to wait till they're there?
We check them out ahead of time and set them on the counter, and if they don't come that day, then we check them back in.
Okay, that makes sense.
So it seems like it would take a lot of phone calling for patrons to, convey to you what books it is they want, what you actually have available, to browse the shelves per se without being in the building. Do you know what I'm saying? So yeah, I'm just trying to figure out how this curbside could work without people actually coming in and selecting their own books.
Well, there's this online catalog. So
yeah, that's great, Laura. Let me introduce you to the people who don't have smartphones or computers at their houses.
Oh dear.
I've been getting a lot. This is Kathy again. I get a lot from email messages, and we have signs on our doors and our windows. And I know we have patrons that don't have internet at all, and my staff kind of know who they are, and they actually do call them every so often to see if they need anything, and if they can bring them something, or if they want to come get something. But I've been getting a lot with email, which is great because that gives us time to pull the items, make sure they're there, check them out, and then we contact them and set a time for them to come pick them up.
Mary, this is Elizabeth. When we were doing it, part of what I would do, and I do this even before this, when somebody would be sick or something and they'd call, we tend to pull maybe about 3 times the amount of books we think they actually want. So that if we miss on what they're interested in or grab something that they already read, hopefully there's something else in the pile.
Yeah, my adults, I'm already doing that. I call, there's a new book, you'll like this, come get it. That
Right.
works great. Or I've been leaving books on porches and stuff. It's the young people that are itching to get in there and get their hands on. I mean, I've got kids that take a backpack full at a time, and they like to pick them out. I mean, I know what they like, but at the same time, we've got one copy of each thing because of the size of our building. And oftentimes what they're exactly looking for is not on the shelf, so they've got to wait. So I just don't know how curbside would work for our younger population.
It's definitely an interesting, reader's advisory sort of challenge to. Yeah. So, let's see. Let me look through the chat here. Also, a question of, will we be able to turn pick lists back on for our libraries only, or to use the wizard when libraries do you know, if you do get to the point where you are going to start doing curbside, from the system perspective, you're basically open at that point, you know, because you'll be doing checkouts and pulling holds. So if you do, you know, once the stay-at-home is lifted, then we would be, you know, likely able to, you know, mark you as open basically. But there is also a way to turn on pick list. So either way, in the next newsletter, which coming out later today or tomorrow morning, fingers crossed, there will be some instructions on sorting your on-shelf holds list by pickup location so that you can ignore all of the ones that are not to pick up at your library, which will be most of the list right now. So just a little bit of info about that seemed an opportune time to share.
Yeah, and just on that holds and transits theme, we made the decision system level not to limit everybody to local holds only, because when this is finished, people are going to want to get their holds when delivery restarts. And if we set all the libraries in the system to fill local holds only, that means your patrons can only put items that you own on hold and nothing else. And then after this is over and we reopen all the libraries, we don't know what holds should be promoted back to system level. So that would have meant that all the holds that were placed during this would be stuck being filled only by your items. So we deliberately left everything set at system level, and we will be asking you when the libraries start to reopen to only fill local holds first until delivery is ready to start accepting more items when we turn, and we can tell people, okay, you can start pulling holds at system level. And the system will happily keep accepting holds and happily assign holds to people. And until, you know, we're to the point where we can start transiting items, it'll just be that some holds don't get filled. But if your patron has a hold on a title and you own a copy of that title and that title becomes available, it will be pulled for your patron. So this is the best way to handle holds post this without, you know, severely impacting holds. I heard somebody sounded like somebody had a question about halfway through that.
I don't know about that. There are there's some chat about senior hours, so if that is another topic. But if anyone did have anything else on holds, I should also mention that we suspended all system hold pickup notices for the time being. Once people do start reopening, you know, we'll turn those back on. But right now, we know right now most of the activity is just people discharging, and you're not wanting, if you're not really open even for curbside, you definitely don't want notices to go out. So, but also since currently most libraries are handling these things, you know, if you are doing some sort of limited pulling things for patrons, it seems like that's being initiated by direct contact, so they know their things are ready. So just bear in mind that until you get the listserv email that we're turning that back on, you will need to manually notify your patrons that their hold is ready. They won't be able to just wait for the system notice. I don't know when we'll be turning that back on, but we'll turn it back on when we need to, basically, I think is probably the answer.
Yeah, and Shout Bomb, we've turned off the notification in Shout Bomb as well. So any of your patrons that have Shout Bomb, they will stop emailing me to say, hey, I got the Shout Bomb thing for a hold pickup on my library's closed. How do I do this? Several of which I've gotten. So Shout Bomb is going to, as of now, is not delivering hold notifications either.
This is Elizabeth and Henry. I have a question for the people who are talking about senior hours. I thought Kendall made a good point about having it align with other senior hours in your community. However, I am not normally open during what is that normal senior hour at other businesses in my community. And if you're not, are you planning to be open for a random hour earlier in the morning so that it aligns with other things? Are you planning to do it the first hour you're open? Is it freeform?
Yeah, I checked with Dollar General here in Wyoming. That's the only real store we have, and their senior hours are from 8 to 9. And I know for a fact that our seniors sleep past 8, so because I've talked to many of them. So, but my plan is, and that was a good recommendation from Kendall, I'm actually adding hours outside our normal hours. I'm going to add the 9 to 12, 2 days a week for seniors only. I want to say something here. I've got to speak up. I've had the question from a staff member about not allowing children into the library, and I saw it in the chat, and I feel very strongly that discrimination against children is as real as discrimination against adults. And I think that if you don't allow children into the library, it's wrong. There, I said it. You can take safety measures. I'm not saying it has to be a free-for-all. But I think that if you do adults only, there's some discrimination there.
I'm also planning to do a senior hour, and your question earlier about like adding hours. I'm going to propose this to my staff. I mean, we can't make any decisions right now because we need more information. But I'm going to propose to my staff that even though we're used to opening at 9 a.m. Monday through Saturday, I guess, I'm going to suggest that we open at 8 a.m. perhaps 2 days a week. And this will be temporary. And, maybe we'll do it for 2 weeks and we notice no one's coming at 8. The senior citizens are still just coming at 9. Okay, well, then we stop doing it. It's, as we have said in so many different ways and so many different times, we are learning as we go. And the rules or guidelines that we've heard one day are going to change by the next day or the next week. And so for the most part, I'm really encouraging you guys to, put some plans in place. As I think Mary said earlier, it makes sense to plan now. However, be willing to admit that, that plan doesn't work and we got to come up with another one. And that's fine.
So I guess where I was coming from a little bit more is maybe for smaller libraries, there are several days a week when I don't open until 1 o'clock.
Yeah.
So, that's well past what anyone else is doing for senior hours. And I guess I was looking for, we're going to open, say, our plan is 9 to 11, close, then have our normal hours and see how it goes. Or just go ahead and do your 1 hour starting at 1. I don't know.
Has most canceled summer reading?
You betcha.
No.
Okay.
I haven't canceled
No?
it.
Well,
No,
my
it's
original
gonna be
plans are in
virtual.
the trash can. New plans are going up now.
I was just curious because some of the programs that we offer, they're like quite pricey. I mean, we're a small library and they're pricey for our budget. So I don't know whether to just go ahead and cancel those. I mean, like we're in Rushville and most things come from like St. Louis or Springfield and then we have to pay travel fees, which are quite expensive. So I didn't know if I should just be proactive and just go ahead and cancel
Amy, this is Kathy.
everything.
Amy, this is Kathy, and I've just canceled all of ours.
Okay.
Because I think we're not going to know what's going to happen in the next few months. And I think somebody at the last one said, you don't want to be waiting till the last minute.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Good,
So
good.
We are looking at alternatives. I'm looking at suggestions from the presenters about what maybe if they have some ideas about what we could do instead. But we will have a summer reading program. I'm just not sure what it's going to look like right now.
Okay. Maybe it'll be more like a hopefully back to school program or something. I don't know. I'll have to just adjust it.
Yeah. This is Laura from Dunlap. I echo what Kathy just said. It is really smart to really strongly consider canceling, or of course reaching out to those presenters and asking if they have any virtual options. I'm happy to connect you with my children's librarian. She's been brainstorming a lot of things for a couple weeks. And I'm sure other people can, are happy to share ideas as well. But fiscally, I think that's what Kathy was saying is a really good idea.
Okay, thank you.
So let's see. Yeah, it does seem to be a lot of people moving to online, adapting their programs. There was something in the chat a while ago, so I don't know if I'll be able to find it again, but someone was asking about if anyone was considering the idea of shortening it and starting it later. Oh, that was you. But that was the first time I'd heard someone kind of float that idea. I mean, and I don't know in that context, even if in July, big in-person events will be a go even at that point. But that was the first time I'd heard kind of that consideration, or the consideration of a back to school program. So
yeah, maybe run it. I don't know what August will look like, or July. It says what the virus needs heat. So I don't know. Yeah. I don't know.
Yeah, it's an interesting question either way. All right, let's see. I'll turn my screen share back on 1 sec. You'll have memorized the slide by the time we're done, I'm sure, but there it is again. Hopefully you don't have my stuff in the way. There. Let's see. I feel like we've actually kind of covered kind of most of that, but I guess one question I have, and I probably asked this last time, and maybe this is, me trying to be positive about all this, but has anyone thought of any services they are going to try use this as kind of, whether it's a service to patrons or something you've had staff working on, any projects or programs that you're kind of using this as a opportunity to kind of guinea pig something that maybe you wouldn't have tried otherwise, or something like that. I mean, my RSA example is just kind of doing more online trainings, things like that. I was just curious if anyone does have anything that they've found.
Anna, this is Kathy. It's not a new program, but I have been having problems convincing my board to spend the money on like a movie or online movie or something download. And I think this may be a way to convince them that it's time to do that. Okay. To take some of our budget and do that.
Okay. Yeah, that's the kind of thing I was like, it's any little silver lining-y thing or something, or, like, hey, my staff has gotten a lot better about reading their emails now, that sort of thing. I was just kind of curious. Let's see. Okay, I'm going to go to the next little thing here, which is a little bit more kind of building supply oriented. And this is just a little bit more about that kind of quarantining materials. If you are quarantining materials, kind of what are your plans around that? Have you, we hear about libraries, taking over meeting rooms for that, or any other additional physical supplies. I heard one library was talking about getting clear shower curtains to hang up across the circ desk to be a barrier, just that type of topic. So if there's any conversation around that. Oh, Jenny says people have been enjoying video story times. That's cool.
I did find, this is Laura from Dunlap. I did find a vendor for commercial paper products, including toilet paper. Ooh. That's in the Peoria area. I won't be greedy. I will share it. They are more expensive. We were buying our paper products just from Sam's Club, which has a good price and stuff, and so they are more expensive than that. But I'm going to place an order with them because I just want these products in place when I open up the library, whenever that is. For anyone in the greater Peoria area, and I think even close to Bloomington, it's a company called Martin One Source. They mainly do marketing and printing, which is great, but they're starting to do more of these just office supplies. So they gave me a good price. And I'm buying hand sanitizer from a local distillery. I've heard that from a lot of folks.
For those that are buying this distillery hand sanitizer that doesn't have any sort of like thickening or gel agent or anything like that, is your plan just to put, I'm assuming it sloshes around like liquid alcohol then, right?
Yeah, I'm assuming. I haven't seen it yet.
And is the point is just to like refill your previous ones that like spit out the gel, or how do you?
That's what I'm planning. I'll see how it works. But yeah, I've got a bunch of those dispenser things. And so I'll use up the gel and then I'll fill them with this liquid stuff. And yeah, we might get some like overshoots and whatnot. But if that's the worst that can happen, at least it's there.
Let's see. Peeking on the chat. We had a question. Has anyone had any success with online book clubs? Otherwise, I mean, a few people have responded in the chat, but any other conversation about it?
We had a much smaller subset of our book club. When we did it online with Jitsi. And I had me and my staff member who's been coming to book club and 2 people who called in, and then another one on a computer. I was really pleased. I don't know from her perspective how it went. I was really pleased with one of the people who called in, because when I called her to let her know what was going on, she's like, I don't have a computer. Like, I have a phone number and a code for you. And she did actually join us. It took a little bit to get through. When I tried it with the kids, I had a couple of them. We talked some. So they've been sort of, but not, you know.
I have a real quick question. Have a lot of you did online book readings for children? I'm sure you have, but do you think we're inundating, like they're going through school right now online and their teachers are reading books online? We even had our principals and superintendents. Do you think it's just throwing a lot at people, or should we just keep doing it and reading books, you know, online? Or have you made it mandatory with your children's librarian to do that maybe once, twice a week?
This is Elizabeth and Henry. I think it is throwing a lot there. I think it's still worthwhile to put it there. I am the one who's doing it. I want to keep us in front of people, and I want to keep us in front of people not just as text on a screen, but as a picture with a voice. And that's one of the easy ways that I can think of to do it. The other thing I've been doing, because I just kind of wanted to, and because I'm a geek, the adult book club happens to be reading The Wizard of Oz for May, which I'm so thankful for because The Wizard of Oz is in public domain. So while ebooks may not be their preferred method, they can get it. But what I have also been doing, because it is in public domain, is I've been making YouTube videos of me reading it. So everybody should have access to it. But like I said, part of it is I'm trying to keep a face and a voice out there as well as the text.
Okay. And I've been rolling out like activity carts, like, we had some seeds donated to us, and then I put a little hand sanitizer on the cart and like just say take one. And then I've been rolling book carts out, and the public is really appreciative of that, you know, free books, and they're all really good. They've been distancing, and they only come up one at a time. So those are some things we've kind of been doing, but I just didn't know. I'm still helping my granddaughter in the morning with preschool, and it's a hot mess express. And trying to do that Zoom with these little kids, you got half of them bawling and half of them hiding, and then I'm chasing her around with my phone. It was crazy. So I'm like, maybe it's me that's stressed. I don't know. But I just thought, are we giving them just too much, and but you're right. We probably need to keep a presence. That's the good thing. So I guess they can choose to watch or not watch, I suppose. So
this is Elizabeth and Henry. I will admit that I have been reading Simon and Schuster books, because when School Library Journal was putting out the various easing of restrictions that various publishers had put, they had the ones that I could understand the best. So before we close, I think I have 70 Simon and Schuster picture books that I checked out at my house now. And, because as opposed to some of them which were, oh, it can only be alive or it can only be in private channels. That one said, we would prefer a private channel, but if you can't do that with a picture book, it's okay, just delete it by the end of the school year. And so, I read it, it's there. Come June sometime, I'll go and delete all the videos. But up until then, if they see it, it's going to be there and they can watch it whenever.
Amy, this is Laura from Dunlap. I like what you, I really like what you said about you want to be in front of the your patrons, and that makes a lot of sense. I guess I do encourage you to come up with like another activity, like an online. I mean, you could still film yourself. It doesn't have to be a story time. If you can come up with just a singing time, or just something, it's a little bit different. So that's just a thought.
Go ahead. No, I just.
My children's librarian came up with a quick science experiment, science being in quotes, science experiment with sorry, I'm really not finding words this afternoon. Food dye, like food coloring, and it was cute, and it was with Q-tips, and it didn't stain your counter, and it was just one of these things like, okay, that's cute. So just throwing that out there. You could do a lot of different things besides read a story.
This is Kathy at Prairie Skies. One of the things we've done is on our website and on our Facebook, we have sent links to different crafts that you can do with just household items, and also then coloring sheets that you can print off in place of, because we have a make and take table at both our locations, and we thought we could do that in place of that activity. We really haven't done a lot of online programming because it's not that easy for us. But I noticed another library I worked at before, they have reached out to their community, and they have local heroes that are filmed reading stories to the kids, which I thought was kind of a neat idea.
I don't know. I've heard some kind of exciting ideas for, people are being creative with the online programs, and I think that's very cool. And I think y'all are right that even if patrons are kind of feeling overwhelmed and overburdened and stuff, I mean, it kind of some of the things that John was talking about in the last session, it's even if they personally don't use it, the knowledge that it's there and that you're doing this may still, stick in their minds as a positive thought about the library. And that, I think sometimes, there is something to be said just for kind of being in touch in that way. So, but I think this is probably definitely not the time to worry about your program statistics and going, this was a flop, only, 2 people showed up. It's probably, but probably also not, and a lot of people are kind of dealing with the issue of finding things for staff to do. If you do have staff who are still trying to put in a few hours a week or something like that, then can be a good way to use them, I guess. I don't know. I'm I don't know. I'm admiring everyone's creativity from afar. I think, you know, people are bringing it. And it's cool. Okay, let's see. I'll pull back up my slides. Some of these are, you know, kind of the same topics as before, but things may have changed. So let's see. Okay, so we asked about any leads. And then I guess, yeah, you know, we've talked talked a bit about the safety concerns. So am I sharing? I've lost my Zoom controls.
You are sharing your
I'm
face.
sharing. Yeah, no, I don't want to do that. No one needs that. There we go. Okay, so this is kind of a recycled topic, but how is your staff handling their work? Does anyone have any updates or anything new that you've tried regarding staff working from home? You know, are you know, people still having staff work from home? Have you had any changes to that, or anything related to that topic? Ooh, is anyone offering notary service? That's a question from the chat.
We've just kind of been, this is horrible to say, but it seems like a blessing because we've been weeding like crazy, and it's something that's needed done for, oh my Lord, years. So that's kept our staff, of course, we're only a staff of 2 full people. So it's helped kind of get those extra projects that need done completed. So that'll take a while.
We have from Ricardo, universal classes, meetings, and webinars. Yeah, it is definitely a time to catch up on CE, you know, for staff. Close. Okay. Let's see. Let's see, any other topics, I guess. We've been through most of my slides, so is everyone just zoomed out? Fair enough if you are. I think my favorite comment from the chat, and I think it is echoed by a lot of people, is, does anyone ever just want to cry? So yes, this is, I think it's a hard situation. So a lot of people do seem to be, you know, I think libraries are good at making the best of things, and I don't know. I'm gonna go all mom and just say I'm very impressed with how everyone has handled this and how people have, you know, brought out creativity and, you know, their commitment to the field, and good job.
This is not really library related. This is Elizabeth and Henry. And immediately prior to this, I was directing a show which had lots of challenges, and I kept saying, I'm going to drink a lot as soon as this is over. And people said, well, why? I got too much to do now. And then this hit. So I'm still waiting for that chance when I can drink a lot. I'm hoping it's coming, but I need to get through this one too.
Let's see. Oh, someone just asked about the IPLAR deadline. I'm trying to think, what is the most recent we've heard about that? I know it's been pushed back. I may have to see if I can find that and share that in a newsletter or a listserv post or something. I don't have that handy.
Yeah, I know the certification was suspended for this year. I'm trying to see if I've got any email for IPLAR dates here. That's date, that's not IPLAR. I needed to say IPLAR.
Yeah, I thought it was what Lori in chat said, it was 30 days, but I was trying to find a source for it, and I don't remember where I saw that.
The Rails e-news on March 25th is the last instance of IPLAR in my email. And it still says public libraries required to submit 60 days after the library's fiscal year end. So I don't, unless there's something on the Secretary of State's page, I don't have anything in my email about IPLAR. I do know that like I said, the
certification.
Thank you. My brain went blank.
All right, let's see. Oh, and another question, have we heard anything about per capita grant? I have not, personally. Another question is what is your staffing like at this time? Does anyone want to share what their current staffing situation is?
This is Kathy at Prairie Skies, and we have kept all our staff and are still paying them. The board decided because the money was already budgeted just to keep doing it. And, you know, and after hearing what's happened with all the unemployment and everything, I doubly am glad that we did that.
Is anyone who is having staff in the building in a limited way, have you done anything in change of like layout to your workroom to, you know, social distance, or has anyone taken over a meeting room for their personal use or anything like that? I'm just curious.
I did. This is Mary in Wyoming. I revamped our cert desks to keep the returns separate from the checkout station, and I ordered a sneeze guard for the checkout station. And I ordered some bins to keep the returns in for the quarantine. So yeah, that's all going to look very different. And then too, the changes I made for social distancing. And then as far as staffing goes, I have 2 staff members in their 70s, and I have forbid them to go to the library. It's like, no, just stay home, don't do work. And so I'm working, you know, bits and pieces and doing a few deliveries. And my children's librarian, she's dropping off a craft in the Little Free Library or something like that once in a while, and posting things online for the kids. But there's no one in the building for any length of time on a regular basis. Everyone's getting paid though. And I think that's a trend among libraries. You know, we've got the money set aside already, so let's just hope that new money is not delayed. I've heard talk in the state about pushing back property tax due dates, and that will affect us as a district after July 1. We need some new money, or, you know, if this shutdown's still going on, things could get pretty tight.
Yeah, this is Elizabeth and Henry. I know that Marshall County was talking about changing due dates. What my board sent an email to at least my board president, and I gave the information to the whole board, sent an email to the county board. And I know that our county treasurer is not in favor of pushing back the dates, but is in favor of delaying any penalties. Yeah. So that way we might only get 50% of the money that we should have gotten to start with, but at least you would get some at the initial payout. So I'm hopeful that that's the way, you know, because I don't want to punish anybody who can't pay it. But if you push the dates back, then you push the dispersals back as well. And I'd rather get 50% or 25% even on the original schedule from the people who could pay the property taxes.
I have a question regarding staff in the building. Since we're not considered essential, can libraries actually require that people work in their buildings? Is that legal?
None of us are lawyers.
Yeah.
Okay.
I will recuse myself from.
Have you thought about that?
This is Kathy at Prairie Skies, and I think I read something where you really can't. But actually, my staff was the one that wanted to do it. They are the ones that said they wanted to set up a schedule and be in the building every so often to get some things done and to do as much patron service as we could safely do.
So we are not mostly in the building. One of my staff is picking up the mail on Monday and Thursday, and she goes down and empties the book drop, and then I'm heading down usually on Friday to empty the book drop. I proposed doing, limited in the building with coordinating so we weren't there at the same time for shifting books or doing this or doing that. And I got pushback from my board that stay at home means stay at home, and we want the minimum number of people for the minimum amount of time in the building.
Mm-hmm.
So we're checking the mail and emptying the book drop, and the rest of it, I've got a new cell phone that the library rings through to, and I check my email and I make the journey from one side of the room to the other side of the room. So that's what we're doing. Some of my staff would like to be in the building more. They are getting paid, and they're like, but one of my staff is doing a lot of my Facebook stuff. That's normally kind of her thing anyway. She's the one who I strongly suspect when we come back, she's not coming back. Because I watch her Facebook feed, and I know she was talking about retiring anyway. And I know her husband, who teaches community college, has said, if we're still doing this online in the fall, I'm just going to retire early, not wait another year. And I just have a feeling, nothing confirmed, nothing definite, nothing actionable. I just have a feeling that when we return, she's going to decide, no, I can't do this. So,
yeah. Yeah, I've wondered if that might be something a few people do run into, people who are considering retiring anyway, and are just like, well, I might as well just start now, things like that. But I don't know. Oh, let's see. Yeah, and in the chat, a lot of people are just the reminder that HR Source is there to, help with some of those types of questions. So feel free to reach out to them, basically. Let's see. Yeah, and a lot of people are just, really kind of, making sure people aren't working in the same location at the same time, and, alerting each other to when they arrive and when they are leave. Okay. Yeah. Any other topics? Anything I've missed? Anyone at all? Bueller? Let me pull up my slides just in case there was something we didn't talk about. Is there anything from a system perspective that we can help with or clarify, or any concerns or anything you've wondered when you do begin to reopen in a limited fashion, if there's something we can help with? Workflows, questions? Like, I don't know, expired or soon to be expired patrons, things like that. Reports, anything? All right, we've got it all. We've done it perfectly. No one needs anything at all from RSA.
I can tell you that there will be reports coming out soonish. basically detailing all of the school library items in public libraries, be they in transit to or from the school or the public library or checked out in a public library, and also reports showing all public library items checked out in schools, again, to and from transit as well. We are at this point in time unsure if delivery will touch the schools this year. We're not sure. We've heard from a couple of school librarians that they're absolutely not going to be allowed in the building for some time. So we want to at least get everybody lists of all the items that are out there that had been transited. We're getting requests from schools for lists of everything that their patrons have checked out, so they can contact the students and make sure that they try and get their books back on the same day when they're required to bring their textbooks back. So we're not sure if school libraries will be able to transit items back to public libraries until the fall. Again, it all depends on what delivery is able to do and if school library staff are allowed back in the building. But we'll be providing reports so at least you guys have good visibility into where your items are on both sides of that divide.
This is Laura from Dunlap. Kendall, thank you very much for that update, because that is something that I was thinking about. At the very least, I'd like to hope that the school or the community is kind of educating the patrons to say, hey, guess what? If you can't bring it to the school because of this, that, and the other, just take it to your public library maybe, or something like that. Like somehow find a building that says library and give them the book or something like that. It's a silly reason or silly response, but it's a thing.
Let's see, we got a question. Will we have a way to check items, to check in items to quarantine? Okay, so there are a couple of options when you are receiving items from patrons. Number one, probably the easiest option is to just take the items, put them in a bin or put them in a basket or a bag or whatever, put them in that 72-hour quarantine zone for, today would be Wednesday, so put them in the Wednesday pile, and not check them in first, right? So they're going to be checked out for 3 more days, but as of right now, no patron owes any overdue fines on those items. Nothing's going to go lost. Those clocks have all been moved back to the 10th of May, and we can push those clocks back farther. So that's probably, even though the items are not going to come off the patron's account right away, as long as you tell your patrons, hey, we're going to take these items, we're not going to touch them for 3 days, you won't owe any fines on them once we do check them in. That's method one. Method two would be to set up a user kind of like your no transit user, but something along the lines of Corona user, right? And as items are returned to you, check them out to the Corona user and set them aside. That would get them off the patron's account, but you are then handling each item that comes back into your library, which kind of defeats the purpose of putting things in quarantine. So that's probably not the best way to do it. I think the best way to do it is just to extend fine-free out as long as it needs to go, at least for the foreseeable future until things kind of return to normal later this summer, in which case then you can go back to doing things however you were doing them. But that would be probably the best way to go about it.
Yeah, and I would echo that suggestion to kind of treat this as if you are temporarily doing fine amnesty or fine free, because even if you do return to something resembling normal operation in the next couple of months, like if you have aging patrons or patrons who are immune compromised or whatever, even if you are comfortable and ready to go back to something resembling normal service, your patrons may not be ready to come back. And I wouldn't feel like it would be a good idea to penalize those patrons who are trying to be extra cautious about their own health or the health of their family. So I would kind of strongly recommend being very, very forgiving in terms of fines for a good long while after reopening. I mean, that's, a little bit of my personal soapboxing, but, I don't think from an optics perspective it would be a great look to be very punitive and fines in the aftermath of this,
I agree with you, Anna. But what if our patrons have interlibrary loans that they're holding on to for long periods of time?
Well, I guess I'm the person who usually gets the call to scold someone about an overdue interlibrary loan. So I think I will just probably not have a whole lot of patience with those phone calls.
Would an item automatically go to lost status and the patron will be charged for it?
Well, right now, it's the loss, it wouldn't go into lost status until it's overdue for a certain period of time from the automatic perspective. So if we are pushing back due dates, then that will solve that problem. We have currently, I believe, suspended that report that moves them into lost status. So right now they haven't. I mean, we will be unsuspending that report at some point in time. But since circulation rules are based on the checkout library, if it's one of a hold that was checked out at your location, it'll be based on whatever adjusted due dates you set up.
Right.
So, but and I this may be a question for membership, but to kind of relax some of the rules about overriding renewals and things like that as well, to kind of, especially right now, since delivery is not even running, it's kind of a moot point. But if libraries do start reopening with limited service before delivery, and you've got a patron with an item that belongs to another library that wants another renewal, there's not going to be much of a point in denying them the renewal when you can't even transit it back to that library, even if they did return it.
I'm afraid we may have some elderly patrons who will be afraid to leave their homes until the end of the summer, maybe.
Right.
Who knows?
Yeah, and that's kind of my concern too. But yeah, I don't want to be punitive toward those patrons in that regard. So.
Yeah, and a lot of the work we've done at system level with extending out all all due dates for all items, whether they were overdue or not, till May 10th. Halting the lost reports for items, things like that. We did all of that because patrons cannot get into the library, and we wanted to be as forgiving as we possibly could for those items when people have no way to do anything with them.
Right.
So, and again, when we're talking system-wide, if the governor pushes out the stay-at-home order statewide, it's fairly easy for us to go ahead and check out all the items, renew them all basically until, the end of May or something like that. I was just looking at the news site here, and the governor is backing away from, maybe I'm not thinking about closing the state until June, and talked about maybe phasing in something on, something different for rural counties. That would make our lives a little harder, because we would have to go through and say, okay, of the libraries in these counties, which one of you are planning on opening? Which ones of you, do you want us to move your due dates out or not? These, Peoria County probably would not be able to open due to our caseload, although who knows what they're thinking. Maybe we're small potatoes in the grand scheme of things. So if the governor comes out and says some counties can open and others can't, then we have to look at it from a county by county basis, and then also ask you and say, hey, by default, we're going to extend everything out to this date. If you don't want us to do that, then let us know, and we'll take you off that list of the libraries whose items we would automatically extend out. So we're trying to do the right thing by the patrons as much as we can from the system here. As much as we can, without totally impacting your lives and making things difficult for everybody. And again, a lot of it will depend on when delivery starts and how delivery runs once it restarts, because that's going to have a big impact on our system. I did figure out, let me see if I can find that particular thing. I was running some reports for the Rails delivery study, and one of the most interesting things I had found was that most of the holds filled in RSA go through delivery. In fact, 18, almost 19% of holds are filled in libraries. So 19% get filled in libraries. And of the 81% that are left, only 8% of that 81% get filled intra-library. So like Peoria Public Branch to another Peoria branch, or all the Illinois Prairie branches filling holds amongst themselves. So we're really only looking at about 26% of holds getting filled locally. The other 74% of holds are filled by a transit from another library member. So in RSA anyway, that's a pretty high number. Some of the larger Chicago libraries, that those numbers are flipped somewhat. There's many more holds are filled locally, but for RSA's case, we're very much holds wise dependent on delivery.
Yeah, and we have had, some conversation about some people who are like, well, I was thinking about going fine free. I guess this will be kind of a test run. And yeah, some who are, definitely not fine free forever, but fine free for now. And, that may be kind of a way to look at it, is I am temporarily fine free. It's an emergency situation. This is, but yeah, I would not object to anyone wanting to go fine free permanently. But and another good point though that was brought up, just in light of if you are either discharging things a little bit later than you normally would, once libraries are at the point where they're doing some form of reduced service or something, you will run into item type checkout limits and things like that. And so you probably will be in a position where you'll have to be doing some overriding and that sort of thing, which will mostly impact the people with self-checks who might not be able to use self-checks for quite as many transactions. I don't know of a great way around that, because even if you were to check it out to a quarantine card, do your discharges right away and check them out to a quarantine card, then you'd have to do the override to get them off the quarantine card, or discharge them from the quarantine card and then have them all pop up with holds, and then have to do overrides for the hold notices. So I think regardless, you may run into needing to do more overrides when you're doing checkouts. I don't really see a way around that in this scenario. So I'm sorry, self-check people. But all right. At 4:25, any closing thoughts? Apparently not. Everyone is thoroughly and well and completely zoomed out. So
it's only Wednesday too.
Yeah, I know.
There's still so many more.
Yes.
We will have another session next week.
Yeah. I don't know if we've set a time yet. We could do it at the same time, or we could move it to a morning session so that see if we get a slightly different bank of people. But
and then the week after that, on May 6th, is our regularly scheduled RSA users group meeting. So rather than have a roundtable that week, we will let the RSA users group do that. As you may imagine, the agenda will be heavily focused on closure activities, services provided, and reopening activities. So pretty much this session, but maybe with different faces. So so at least for the next 2 weeks, and again, we'll continue this. We kind of thought we were planning to start doing these basically on a monthly basis anyway in the summer. So we will keep these running, and hopefully you guys find them helpful. And as we get out of this situation, it'll be more like a open question and answer session type of thing. But at least for the next 2 weeks, Anna will get one scheduled for next week, and then it'll be Wednesday. Is that Wednesday? It's a Wednesday.
Yeah.
That's way out. Yeah, Wednesday. So it'll be Wednesday, May 6th at 1:00 will be the one that week.
Okay.
Thanks for coming out, everybody.
Yes.
We appreciate it. It's fun to see those of you who have your cameras on. We enjoy watching you and your various activities. Thank you very much.
All right. Okay, thank you all.
Take it easy, folks.
I will stop the recording here and